I am Vinnie Tortorich. Folks, your good intentions have been stolen. But don't worry, I'm here to help you get them back. You may be soft and succulent at the beginning of this process, but hang in there. Before long, you will be lean and mean, guaranteed, just like the guy on the other mic. He comes in every Wednesday. People seem to like him until they decide to hate him. I'm talking about the wonderful Mr. Chris Shaffer. Yeah. Chris, I just got back from the gym.
Well, that's terrifying. Were you picking things up and putting things down?
I was, but before I did that, I got on the stair climber.
Did you take the elevator to the stair climber? That's
no elevator in my gym, but if there were an elevator, I wouldn't have taken it. So here's the deal. You know, one of my New Year's resolutions over the past several years was to do at least an hour of aerobics every day, right? Not every day, but it had to come to 365 hours by the end of the year. Meaning I never do aerobics every day, but when I do it, you know, it could be 2 hours here, an hour and 45 minutes there, whatever. So it would come to, I would always end up at 420 to 445 hours or so per year. So I would well exceed my goal. And as a matter of fact, I've seen a few people on Twitter, on X or wherever, doing the same thing now, going, yeah, it's a worthy goal. And it really is, because it makes you remember to do something, right? And I tell people a simple walk for an hour can count as your aerobics. I never let that count as mine, but it could, right? This year I did not prioritize that because I wanted to prioritize putting muscle on, right? So even though I was always doing weights and everything in the prior years, along with all of my aerobics, I decided to change things around just a tad bit, where I'm now doing more, you know, I'm prioritizing strength training and letting aerobics take a back seat.
Right.
Okay. So what does that mean? Do I cut them out? No, I don't, because hell, I have Mount Whitney coming up, and lifting all the weights in the world ain't going to get you that 22 miles of Mount Whitney. Right. So I got to spend time. And by the way, you go up 11 miles, you're going up from 8,000 feet to 14,500 feet in an 11 mile. So it's not particularly difficult, but it's not easy. And you're at altitude. So you have to have aerobic fitness. Therefore, I've been keeping up with my aerobics, but still prioritizing the strength training. If it becomes either or, strength training is what gets done that day. Right? So I'm not doing the same number of hours that I used to do, but I'm still keeping up. Now I have 100 days until I have to climb Mount Whitney. That's what we call in the business nut cutting time. I don't know why we call it that, but we're going to call it nut cutting time. Right? So my aerobics are creeping up a bit. And today I did something that I never do. Today was leg day in the gym. You know, you never skip leg day. You always got to do legs. But before I did one squat, before I did one leg press or lunge, I did 50 minutes on the stair machine, right? So I'm incorporating zone 2 aerobics into, now you go off 50 minutes. That's not a whole lot, Vinnie, but it's not nothing, right? I'm putting that time in. I'm getting my heart rate up. I'm getting my muscles ready for climbing. And then after that, I'm going to really tax them with an anaerobic workout. It's another one of these where there's a will, there's a way type of things. Right?
So are you just concentrating on the lower body for that? So you're doing some stair climber and then leg press or a squat or something like. I know you're not a huge fan of doing squats yourself from the conversations you and I have had, just because it's a little bit nicer on your knees to use the leg press, and you get essentially the same thing out of it.
Well,
But are
it's,
you
it's
looking at it?
actually the lower back that I'm concerned with me. My knees are fine. Well, normally the way I used to do this kind of thing is I would do the leg work first, the weights first, and then do whatever you got left in your leg, do stair climber and all that afterwards, right? But today I
Right.
went for it in reverse. It was like, you know what? Let me get rid of some of the glycogen, some of the stuff you need, because I'm fat adapted anyway, right? And I can still go and do a leg workout. Now, is that something you want to do ongoing? No. But when you're trying to tax your muscles, your leg muscles in particular, this is not a bad way to go. And I remember doing a lot of this when I was training for Mont Blanc and Grand Paradiso and all those glaciers. You know, let's wear out the muscle and then wear out the muscle, right? And then immediately come home and eat some protein and rest, which I'm in the resting stage right now while I'm doing this. I have this podcast. I'm going to be sitting for the next 4 hours, right? Doing podcasts. So, yeah, it's go tax the muscles, get some good animal protein in you, and then rest. It's that simple, right? And bro science tries to make it so much more difficult than that, and it shouldn't be ever.
I love me some bro science. And I guess the question would be, right, if you're not training for something in particular, would you still do something? What you're talking about, like the fancy name for what you're talking about, Vinny, is pre-exhaustion training, right?
Yeah.
You're exhausting the muscle before you're jumping in and doing your leg press or your deadlifts or your squat, whatever it is that you're doing next. Is that something you would still suggest for people, or are you doing that specifically because you're about to hike 3 miles in the air?
Well, it's periodization, right? You know, people don't talk about periodization very much, but it's something I learned a long time ago. We took it from the Eastern Bloc countries, right? Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall. And then we learned all of the secrets about training. You know, we couldn't figure out why they were kicking our asses left, right, and center. And they did things where they went 100, with strength training 100%, you know, meaning to failure, and then they would have days at 85%, right? They weren't obliterating all the time. And they would do periodization, right, where they would do these exercises for a period of time and then put those aside and prioritize a different set, right? So you're always working different parts of your you know, just different, you're clicking off different boxes in your body, anaerobically, aerobically, you know, plyometrics, you know, just all of it, right? And it made for a stronger athlete. And I picked up on that way back in the early 80s when we learned all that stuff, right? And it still works today. Why would I do this when I'm not training specifically for an event? The event is I will be on a mountain on my feet for at least 14 hours, right? Moving for 14 hours with at minimal 15 pounds on my back. I don't carry more than I have to. Okay. Not the toughest feet in the world. People are going, oh, I got you, Vinny, you're a wimp. I have a buddy who did the H3 trail. He did 20 miles a day and he carried a 40-pound pack. Okay, yeah, I get it. But you train for that, right?
There's
I'm
also a
training for
substantial
that.
difference in elevation there too, right? Like that,
Right.
that does make a difference. And I guess that leads me into the next question, which is, are you doing anything specifically for the elevation? Because you're theoretically at sea level where you are, and Whitney is almost 3 miles in the air. How tall is Whitney?
15.5. I'm sorry, 14.5.
So like just between 2.5 and 3, right? I'm not gonna do that math
Yeah.
on the fly,
Yeah.
but that's substantial, right? And for somebody like me who lives almost 2 miles in the air, adapting to that is substantially different from a cardio perspective than it is for you. So does the additional leg training that you're doing there, is that better for you
Unfortunately,
than the additional cardio, or
and there's nothing you could do at sea level other than sleep in an altitude tent. And by the way, just sleeping in an altitude tent 8 hours a night really doesn't do a whole lot. you would have to have an altitude room. So I would have this office. I can spend $30,000 and turn this section of my office into an altitude chamber, right? And I could turn a bedroom into that, but my marriage would be over with. So that would be way more than $30,000. At one time, I used an altitude tent around a bed to see if that I could get my VO2 max up. And it really, there's not a whole lot you can do. And speaking of VO2 max, no matter what type of aerobic conditioning you're in, meaning with your zone 2, getting your VO2 max up and everything else, none of it, and I do mean none of it, prepares you for altitude. The only thing that gets you ready for altitude is altitude. And it doesn't matter. You could be the strongest marathon runner in the world. Does not get you ready for altitude. As a matter of fact, some of those people don't fare well at altitude at all. That's why when we go do stuff like this, I go up a week early. And what I used to do, the hoity-toity way to do is just go up to Mammoth because that's at 8,300 feet. And sleeping above 8,000 feet gives you a lot of, it changes enough red blood cells over the course of 3 or 4 days, right? But what Coddington and hang on, I said Coddington.
It's the billionaire Don Coddington's friend.
So what we do is we go up to Lone Pine early. There's nothing to do in Lone Pine. There's literally nothing to do. It's an outpost in the middle of a desert, right? It's in the Eastern Sierras. So every morning we wake up. As a matter of fact, we've spent time sleeping at the portal, which is 8,200 feet. Just bring a tent, go to the portal. But we'll just, when we sleep in town, wake up in the morning, eat breakfast at the Alabama Hills Cafe, and then go up to at least 8,000 feet and then mill around to 12,000 feet, just hike up and down everything, spend time. When we get to 12,000 feet, be sunny out there, just lay on a rock for an hour or so, just hang out, look around, look at the lakes, look at the beauty, all that kind of stuff. And then come back down to 8,000 feet, maybe eat a hamburger. There's a store up there. You can get a hamburger, something like that. And just stay there as long as we can, right? That's the only way you can acclimate, is to be acclimated. Does that make sense?
It does. And I will tell you, doing anything at elevation when you're not accustomed to it is not fun. But going the other way is a lot of fun. I can do a heck of a lot more at sea level in the gym than I can here, right? You have just a little bit more gas in the tank.
Yeah, and back in the days when I was ski 35 days a year, meaning I was up at Mammoth almost every weekend, right? And we would love that Monday bike ride when we got back because you were more oxygenated, right? Your red blood cells were used to that. But by Wednesday, you couldn't feel it anymore, right? Your body goes right back down. But when it's used to doing that and you're up there every weekend, you fill up the tank again, right? As a matter of fact, a lot of times that first ski trip in the season, you're bringing your luggage into your condo and you're carrying, it's like, oh my God, I'm winded, right? But by the second or third trip, you're not winded anymore, right? Your body, your brain goes right to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When are you headed up?
I don't like to give the exact date.
But like within the next few weeks, or you
No,
talking like
I'm 100 some odd days out.
Okay. So you're thinking about this 5-6 months in advance, not even.
Yeah. Yeah, you could pay me now. The Fram Oil used to have a commercial, Fram Oil filters. You could pay me now, or you could pay me later. And that's the way fitness is. You get it in the tank right now. Get the fitness under you. You never know if you're going to catch a flu later in the season where you might be knocked out for a week. You never know if you're going to, stump a toe or break a leg or whatever. Whatever it is, be ahead of the game and hope that nothing, of course, you don't want anything to happen, but if stuff happens, you're good to go. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. Chris, I'm going to change the subject a little bit here.
Okay.
I was talking to a couple. It was mostly the woman. Now, I'm not going to give their last names here because this is not to embarrass anyone or anything, because this, what I'm talking about is not even embarrassing, but I didn't get permission. Her name was Teresa and his name was Mark. And you know who you are. And by the way, very nice couple. Both big fans of the show. Mark even more than Teresa, although the consult was Teresa talking about things she's trying to get straight, right? But both fans of the movies, Fata documentary, the whole thing. And Mark never misses a show. Telling you, hi, Mark. Yeah. So it was an hour-long conversation. You could tell that I'm trying to find my words here. It was an hour-long conversation. And at some point, about 45 minutes in, Teresa says, how do you feel about vitamins? Are you a fan? Are you for them? Are you against them? Because she was asking me stuff compared to my doctor says, what do you say? Right? Type of thing. And I was like, you're kidding, right? She goes, no, what do you, are you a guy that likes vitamins? Or I said, well, full disclosure, I own a vitamin company, but I'm thinking in the back of my head, you guys are big fans. How do you not know that I'm the owner of PureVitaminClub.com? Now, this is not an indictment on Mark or Teresa, right? It just makes me realize that we never really mentioned the vitamins in the show. And we used to early on when I first started the companies. I'd do verbal ads all the time. And the only time it's mentioned is at the top of the show when you hear Dawson's voice going, PureVitaminClub.com, purest vitamins in the world. Well, guess what everyone does with podcasts? They skip over the intro, 30 seconds until they hear you talking, and that's when they start listening, right?
Something to the effect of, I am Vinnie Tortorich, and your good intentions have been stolen. Yes.
Yeah, that's when they start paying attention because they know, okay, here comes the meat of the show. But it makes me realize how many people don't get the vitamin message from me and what my beliefs are in vitamins, right? Do I think, all right, so here's my short thing, Chris. And you can interview me on this a bit if you want to. You didn't know I was bringing this up, but try to come up with questions. I believe every American, I feel like the president, I believe every American deserves a chicken in a pot, should be on a multivitamin.
Just Americans or
Well,
everyone? But most people.
Most people, but I'm just saying, okay, most people. Eastern Europe, you guys too. Western Europe, you guys, all of you. Okay.
The 15 people listening to us in Australia, this also applies to you. Yes.
And the 2 in Tasmania and the 1 in New Zealand.
Just that random poor dude in Antarctica that has nothing else to listen to except for us at this point. Yeah.
Actually, there's a guy that was in Antarctica that listened to the podcast. I still talk to the guy. Yeah, he's a good guy.
You know what he needs more than a multicap? He needs some vitamin D. That's what he needs. Well, I guess depending on the time of the year, but
he sent me pictures from the South Pole with our products propped up at the South Pole. Yeah. I'm not making that up.
Just throwing ultra salt to penguins.
Yeah, pretty much. So, yeah, they were like, yeah, we don't, you got vitamins? I'm like, yeah, everybody should be on vitamins. And here's why. Because naysayers would go, oh, it just makes expensive pee. That's what doctors love to say. You're just making expensive pee. No, you don't. Your body uses a lot of those vitamins because we have so many stressors in our life now. And our diets just aren't optimal no matter what. No matter how hard you try, it's almost impossible to get an optimal diet. We learned that we have stressors. I just had Dr. Anthony J on the show this past Friday, and you can go hear it. you know, things like, plastics in everything. We have nanoparticles of plastic in our body, just all of the stuff we breathe, just everything around us, right? And not to mention that we do monocrops, right? So a place where you get a lot of good vitamins are in vegetables and fruit and all that. But when you monocrop everything, it loses its zeal, right? So you lose a lot of the vitamins. So that's why I'm a big believer in a multivitamin. And then you'll go, well, why doesn't Pure Vitamin Club have every single kind of supplement you see? Well, we're going to make other supplements, but I started with the things that people need the most, right? That's why we did magnesium as the second product. And you will go, okay, then what's different between your magnesium and anyone else's? Well, broad spectrum, right? We have a broad spectrum magnesium, and it's got 4 different types of magnesium in there. So it absorbs better. We have the good stuff in there. It's not just citrate or carbonate. We have those too, but we have gluconate. What's the fourth one, Chris? Taurate. I got one right
Tortorich?
here. Yeah, taurate. Yeah. So we have the top 4, and it becomes a better product. You don't end up getting the shits from it and everything else. Hate to be cruel.
Specifically with the magnesium, and this is a question we get all the time. I've gotten maybe 4 emails about this in the last 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
They said, why is it this ratio, or why do you have a blend instead of just this kind of, my doctor told me, and this is one of my favorite ones. My doctor told me this kind of magnesium is the best. I see that it's part of your blend, but why isn't it just that? And the answer is because we don't want you to run to the bathroom. We want to give you all of the benefits with none of the downsides. And giving you too much of one form of magnesium means you get some of the benefits and all of the downsides, or it isn't absorbed the same way, right? So the reason that the magnesium is a blend is specifically for that. You get as many of the benefits out of magnesium as possible with as few of the downsides as possible. The biggest downside
with
magnesium is you end up running to the bathroom, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I take mine off label. I take 4 every night and 3 every morning. That's way off label. So that's 7 a day, right? You can't overload on magnesium. And remember when we were having the shortage, when we were having a problem with the magnesium, people didn't care that we were out of multi. They didn't care that we were out of B12 or D or anything else. All they cared about was that magnesium, right? Because they feel the difference. They get a better night's sleep with it. It keeps you regular. It does everything. It's an all-in-one pill. And that was the one thing where people were like, I don't care. Look, you can run out of everything. Get me some of that magnesium. And it's like, well, at first there was supply chain issues, and then there was managerial issues and postal. We had every issue you can possibly have. But now we fixed all of that. Same with B12. Something people don't know about B12 is that if you're deficient in B12 and you're a meat eater where you get a lot of B12 and eggs, if you're deficient, it's because when you hit a certain age, a lot of people, including this guy, me, we lose the ability of our small intestines absorbing B12 from our food. I don't know why that happens. It happened to me. With all the red meat and everything I eat, all the eggs I eat, you would think that I would have enough B12 for me and 5 other people. Turns out I was always low. And then I figured out there's only 2 ways that you can raise it. Either you could take this very oily, viscousy shot every day that hurts because it's a big needle to get this viscousy vitamin B12 in you, or you could take it through a membrane, meaning your nose or between your cheek and gums, right? Like you would put Skol in your mouth or put it under your tongue. And then your body absorbs it just fine like that. And then when I looked around, it's like, wait, everyone else hooks their cyanocobalamin to a piece of sugar. So they're giving you cyanide and sugar with your B12.
I think that's the important thing, and that's the reason I started laughing with B12, right? The most common form that you will find is the form that you just mentioned, right? Cyanocobalamin. And not being a chemistry major, that may not sound like a bad thing until you realize that the cyano portion of that is cyanide.
Right.
Now, the peanut gallery will say, well, that, the FDA says that that's perfectly fine for you. And almost every B12 that I see has that in there. What is the reason that that is not the case? Right. So we specifically use methylcobalamin
Right.
in a sublingual tablet. Why, other than the fact that it's cyanide, do we do that? Is it just because there's a microscopic amount in there, or does it add up over time? Or like, what's the reason that we use methylcobalamin there?
Well, we use methyl because methyl B is the best form of B, on top of the fact that it's not hooked to something that you can get killed by molecule, right?
Which, by the way, if you look into the FDA studies on cyanocobalamin, they're talking about essentially a single dosage is not enough to create toxicity. What they're not talking about is repeat dosages, right? So yes, taking your B12 once in a while probably won't give you cyanide poisoning. But if you take it regularly, which you need to do to get any benefits of it,
Right.
it can lead to problems. And there's no reason for it other than it's cheaper, right? I'm not even going to say less expensive there. It's cheaper to do it
Right.
the other way. And that's why people do it.
Yeah. And my thing is we're going to give you the best possible vitamins at the lowest possible price. And that's the way we're going to keep it. So that's the deal there, right? Vitamin C. People will tell you, oh, don't take vitamin C because no matter how much you take, it runs right through your body and it goes right out. And they would be right until you hook it to something else that can cause your body to absorb it into the bloodstream, into your body, and it becomes a whole different Magilla, right? So we hook it to a fatty acid. So it's a liposomal vitamin C. So you see, and you would say, well, Vinny, why don't most other companies do this? And the reason being is because it's more expensive. The one thing we don't have at purevitaminclub.com is a bean counter. I own the company. It's my money, right? I don't have a board to answer to or anything else because the board would tell me, hey, idiot, you got to take the liposomal part out or you need to charge double because we need to make more money. And my idea is this company is not there to make me rich. This company is to make you better. The whole idea behind purevitaminclub.com is what I'm going to tell you next. And this is a story we used to tell on the show. And the reason I tell the story is because it's a true story. And if you go back and listen to older episodes, you're going to hear exactly the same thing. When I was cured from cancer back in 2007, I started looking at everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything. And one of the things I looked at was my vitamins. I was taking high end, I wasn't taking Centrum off of a grocery store shelf. I was buying the expensive stuff from the expensive companies, right? And I was paying double and triple of what you would pay at a grocery store for my really hoity-toity vitamins. But I noticed a couple of things in there. One, they all had something called magnesium stearate, not to be confused with the 4 kinds of magnesium. Look up magnesium stearate, Chris, so we can give the audience an idea of how bad it is. And while you're at it, look up titanium dioxide because I'm going there next. So all of them seem to have magnesium stearate in them. I couldn't understand why because it doesn't do anything. And when I did a deep dive on it, what I learned was magnesium stearate, when it hits your liver, will block the absorption of other nutrients. So you're taking the vitamins to have a supplement of nutrients, yet there's something in the vitamins that will block the absorption of those nutrients. That was one problem. The other problem was almost everything I took had something in it called titanium dioxide. And I looked that up, and turns out titanium dioxide, even in nanoparticles, nano means really, really, really small particles, will cause colon cancer. Okay. Why would something I'm taking for my health try to kill me? Why would I take this product? So the reason they put titanium dioxide in there is titanium dioxide is a whitener. It's how they make paint white. It's how they make a lot of things white, right? So these companies wanted to whiten all of the vitamins. That's how much titanium dioxide they would mix in. They would whitewash the vitamins and then add back in color to make it look all uniform. That was the only reason, which means now you have another problem. They've added a dye, a color to your vitamin. So you see, the one thing you're taking to help you can now hurt you. Do you understand what I'm talking about here, folks? You could get colon cancer. You got yellow dye number 7 or 3 or 4 or whatever. You got all of this crap going on. And then you have magnesium stearate, which is blocking the absorption of everything except the titanium dioxide, which is going to kill you. So why would they put magnesium stearate? It's a flow agent. It's an excipient. It's a powder. It's like talc powder. They can make the product much quicker if they add all that in. So when I decided to make my own vitamin, I went to these companies and said, hey, I want to make this just for me. And they explained to me, sir, in order to make a bottle for you, it would cost $1 gazillion per bottle. But if you made 10,000 bottles or 20,000 bottles of the product, you could get it for this price. And I went, okay, but that's a lot of vitamins. It's going to take me the rest of my life to use all of these. Hey, wait a minute. I can call it something, Pure Vitamin, and then, wait a minute, I can make it a club, Pure Vitamin Club, and I can make it a .com. And I can sell all the other vitamins that I can't take because I've now bought too many to other people to support my habit, right? That was the impetus of starting this vitamin company. Not to become rich, but to make the best vitamins in the world for me. That's why I did it. That was my selfishness, to give you guys the best vitamins at the best price, because I wanted you guys to buy all of them, so I made the price good. Chris, let's start with magnesium stearate, if you don't mind.
So I'm here learning something too. I know why we didn't use it, but Vinny, did you also know that magnesium stearate is used in paint and varnish along with
I did know that. Yeah, we learned that along the way at some point.
titanium dioxide? And the reason it's used is to make them dry faster, right? So if you have a bucket of white paint sitting somewhere in your house, you likely have both of those ingredients that you were just talking about in it. But they use it a lot of times, especially in manufacturing with things like vitamins, as either a lubricant or, as you might refer to it, Vinny, because with the industry term, like a flow agent, right? It just makes filling the capsules easier. But it also helps hold an emulsification and stabilize things so that they don't separate out, right? So if you have something like a lotion or a cream, a lot of times you'll see magnesium stearate in there. In addition to blocking all of the absorption of nutrients, right? And just the bioavailability overall, it can also cause some fun things like diarrhea, nausea, abdominal cramping, all of those kinds of things. I don't think magnesium stearate is quite as well studied as titanium dioxide in terms of it being banned in a lot of places. But specifically in a vitamin, there's no reason to have it there, right? Like it's
Right.
just, there's zero reason to add that in, even to a magnesium supplement, because it doesn't do anything for you. And yet it's in pretty much everything, which is mind boggling to me because it falls under that great definition of generally recognized as safe. We haven't specifically proven that it's terrible for you. So we'll just put it in because it's not really that big of a deal.
Can you
What are
imagine?
your thoughts on that?
All right, so can you imagine every day you're taking cyanocobalamin, you're
Just a
taking
little cyanide every day, yeah.
just a little bit, and titanium dioxide, and magnesium stearate. All these things they're okay, once. right? But you're taking this on a regimen, and you're doing this in the name of health, right? You see, that's what drives me nuts about my industry, is that it's so backwards, right? And that's why I started my own vitamin company. And look, we were doing well for 10 years, and then COVID hit us, and then supply chain hit us. And then I'm going to just be quite honest, my business partner lost his mind, and the company went sideways until right now when I took it over and fixed it. That's all I can say. I'm saying me, but it was a concerted effort. It was me. It was my beautiful wife, Serena, and who not only stood by me when I said, honey, we're going to have to dump life savings into this company to bring it back. And she stood by me and went, okay. Right. And Chris, who was an employee working on other stuff, who I said, Chris, either you're in or you're out. And Chris could have easily said, you know what, I got other clients. And he said, you didn't even hesitate. You didn't even stutter. He was like, yeah, we're doing this. I believe in this company. You guys did so well, and now we're back, right? We're back in a big way, but people need to know we're back too, right? They need to know that these type of vitamins do exist, right?
Well, I think that to me is the biggest promise of Pure Vitamin Club, is it's everything you need with nothing that you don't.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, it's harder for us to keep it going than it should be, because we don't charge pricing the same way that a lot of other people do, right? You and I looked at the numbers, and it's like, yeah, looking at what other people are paying for this vitamin, they're charging 3, 4, 5, 6 times this amount. The reason we don't do that is because, one, we don't need to make this work, as long as we're paying attention to everything that's going on. And two, the real mission behind this is to help people get what they need, right? And you were talking about a multi-cap, and the reason you think everybody should take a multi-cap is with something like a multivitamin. Does it really just come down to covering your bases, or is there another reason that somebody would be looking to take a multi-cap? Is it like, are you looking at that as an insurance policy, or how do you look at a multi-cap, like a daily multivitamin?
I'll look at it as an insurance policy for whatever you don't get, right? Obviously, there are a couple of vitamins that your body doesn't just burn off, like vitamin A or vitamin, I think D, right? Where, there isn't an IU on those, right? Upper limit, UL. I'm sorry, I said IU. It's UL, an upper limit. But so you don't overly tax your vitamin with that. It's the same reason we don't put iron in our vitamins, right? Some people need iron supplement. I needed a lot of iron supplementation when I was going through chemo. They had me on enough iron. Oh, you should have seen what the bathroom looked like. It was just not pretty, right? And of course, a lot of iron, you become toxic. But my body needed all of that iron. I was on a prescription dose of iron, right? But I don't even put that in my vitamin, because if someone needs iron supplementation, they need to go do iron somewhere else, right? They need to get their ferrous from somewhere else.
Right. You want something specific for that,
Right.
versus it sounds weird to say, a broad spectrum insurance policy, which is really what the daily multi-cap is for.
Right. And, although they don't advertise this, but there were a few nurses from the Charlie Foundation with these kids in the hospitals, right? And they were looking for something that they could put in the feeding tubes to make it more nutritious. And they used my vitamins. They just bought bottles of the vitamins, opened them up, and ran them through the feeding tubes for these kids, right? Because they looked around and went, there's nothing in here that they can't have, right? So it's a supplement to go along with a good, balanced diet, right? And that's the way a multi should be looked at, right? So there. And by the way, people always say, besides the vitamins you sell, is there anything else I should be taking? And the answer is yes, right? One is vitamin E. I'm a big believer in vitamin E, but not again, there is tocopherol, vitamin E, right? You'll notice that it's about half the price of the tocotrienol. Tocotrienol is spelled Tocotrienol, tocotrienol. It's the good form. As a matter of fact, Chris and I, we know where everything comes from. There's literally, I think, one place in the United States that makes tocotrienol. It's I want to say it's called Southern Dixie something Labs, Dixie Labs, or whatever. I can't remember. But if you're no matter who you're buying it from, that tocotrienol came out of Dixie Labs, or is it Dixieland Labs or something like that?
I think
Somewhere,
it's Dixie Labs or Dixieland. Yeah.
something like that. And by the way, don't go look for their vitamin. They don't sell them. They sell you the product. They sell to people like me, and then we go make a version of it. So if you want a good tocotrienol, I'll tell you the one I take is by Cardiovascular Labs, right? It's just called, I don't know why it's called that, but they make a lot of other products. The one thing I could tell you is their tocotrienol is the one I take. I don't make that. I buy someone else's. It's a pure form, right? Vitamin D, right? Most people will make a vitamin D3. We do also, right? Why should you take mine? Well, you got to hook a vitamin D to an oil. Guess what everyone hooks it to? A seed oil. Guess what we hook ours to? Villicapelli olive oil, the biggest sponsor of this show. I contract with, Stephen Crutchfield, not Paul Capelli anymore. He passed away. But Stephen Crutchfield sends us barrels of the stuff, and then we have to get it to our suppliers. And that's how they make our vitamin D3. But wait, there's more. Sounds like an ad, doesn't it? We also add 2 different types of vitamin K, MK4 and MK7. Why? Because it helps vitamin D absorb in your body, in your bloodstream, into your bones. You need the vitamin K to go with it. If you don't have that, a lot of it gets washed out. So you see, when you do vitamins, you got to do vitamins right, or you don't do them at all. Right. And I don't know how I got on this. I didn't mean to turn this into a big old infomercial for vitamins, but I think people need to understand and know why we do what we do. Chris, I've been thinking the whole time, do we still have those videos of me eating paint and eating
Yeah. Some of the best ad copy we've ever had. We may have to go update those.
can we put them on? By the way, folks, I've been very active on X. I've been putting videos up on X every day now, and my X is growing because I went, you know what? Instagram won't show my stuff outside of the people who follow me. Let me go where someone, I want to go where people are going to show me some love. And I know a lot of people don't like X because Elon Musk on X. Okay, great. Don't go to X. But if you have an X account and you want good information every day, I've been putting 2 videos. Is it 2 a day, Chris? 2 videos a day I've been putting
Between
up?
1 and 2, yeah.
Yeah. So can we put the paint one and the me eating sand?
Yeah.
But don't do them on the same day. Do them on subsequent days. And
We'll just spread them out and see what happens.
Yeah, just throw them in there and let's see if anyone pays attention. I don't even know if they're shot in the right format or whatever. But yeah, if you don't like X, I get it. People don't like Elon, and it's a place where I can find audience. Sorry, it just is what it is.
You
Go
brought
on.
up vitamins. I had a few things here that I wanted to run by you.
Sure.
2 studies that came out. One, vitamin D could be an effective way to slow progress of multiple sclerosis. Now, we've seen some other things that come out and talk about other mental diseases. Just gut feeling, Vinnie. I know, this is taking off the scientist hat here for a second. Do you think it's the vitamin D itself, or do you think there's another effect that's going on there, right? Like, one of the things you and I have talked about in the past is people are so scared of cholesterol that they forget that it's kind of important for creating things in your body like vitamin D. And
Right.
so is it the lack of vitamin D, Or is it the lack of the precursors to those things, or a little bit of both, that you think are causing some of these diseases that they're now seeing can have massive impacts? Now, again, 300 persons, 303, right? But they saw a huge difference. I think it was 60% difference between the people who were taking vitamin D with MS and the placebo group.
103. I mean, 60% is impressive, but I think it needs more study. You know,
Yeah, so it would have been about 150 people per group, right? Because it was 303. Yeah.
You know, so that's tough. That's you know, and you know, the old Yogi Berra, you know, if you really want me to tell you the truth, I'm going to have to lie. You know, I don't know. You know, I don't know if that's answerable, right? You know, that's it's not exactly a chicken and the egg, but that's a tough one. I don't know which way you would go with that. I don't know how you would try to level that.
I mean, to me, the obvious answer there is make sure you have your cholesterol checked. If you're on something like a cholesterol lowering drug, figure out if you actually need it, right? Go get a plaque score, go get some of those other kinds of things. Like we've learned over the last 40 years, really, but it's becoming more and more of a thing in the last 10 or 15 years, that cholesterol is not the enemy that everybody makes it out to be. And it turns out that having low cholesterol is substantially worse than having high cholesterol,
Yeah.
especially over long periods of time. But also, if you're low on vitamin D, that's something you need to get raised anyway.
Yeah.
And outside of a blood test, I'm not aware of a good way to know that. Unlike something like a multivitamin, where if you don't need it, you just don't use it that day, basically, right? Like your body just won't absorb those nutrients that day. You also brought up B12, and you and I have talked in the past about how there's no good substitute for a B12 supplement for vegans. They now have found, Vinny, a specific strain of spirulina that has bioidentical B12 in it. What are your thoughts on that versus something like a methylcobalamin?
My thoughts are that's better than nothing, right? Something is better than nothing. But still, you know, I think if you're vegan, if you're planning on living the vegan lifestyle for any period of time, I do not suggest it whatsoever. Sorry. It's an eating disorder that prances around as a diet. I have nothing against vegans, by the way, at all. I have vegan friends. But if you're going to do that crazy diet, do yourself a favor and get methylcobalamin vitamin B12 and get as many methyl B vitamins as you can, right? Niacin and all of it. Just get as much as you can. Take a good vitamin. And there's some good vegan vitamins out there. I don't know about this strain of B12. I don't know enough about it, but it's got to be better than nothing.
Yeah, and so basically what they're doing is, you may remember, Vinny, like 10 or 15 years ago, they came out and said, oh my God, there's B12 in spirulina. It's not really B12, it's a pseudo B12. And so what they did was they bred spirulina in, and you'll have to look at the pictures, essentially a purple laboratory, right? All the lights are like a nice purple just to grow spirulina as fast as possible. In a lab to be able to get this. And they're saying it's as close to bioidentical as possible. Now, again, this is like one lab, and it's a collaboration between Iceland and Denmark, right? So this is a brand new thing. But regardless, you still need to be supplementing with it. Right. And so like it doesn't defeat the purpose. If you want to get it specifically from, a plant-based source and you're positive that it's bioidentical, then that's a possibility. But the real answer here is if you are on a mostly plant-based diet or you have a B12 problem, you need to be supplementing it because there's not another way to get this. And you need to supplement it with real B12, right? Some sort of methylated B12 really is the only way to do it. And I think that's the other thing that you touched on that you didn't really dive into is you said, oh, it gets absorbed through a membrane, right? You can get a B12 shot or it gets absorbed through a membrane. Most B12 supplements are tablets or capsules that you eat.
Right.
Why do we have a sublingual tablet versus a capsule, which is pretty much everything else that we do? It's either a capsule or a gel cap.
Well, because it absorbs right away into the bloodstream, right? It's quite simple. No other reason. And it doesn't take a lot, right? I mean, I've put 2 of mine under my tongue and then went in and took a blood test, and I was over, how they have red, green, red. I was into the high side of the red, right? So it gets it there right away. Right now, that's not a scientific study that I just gave you. That it's just an M1 experiment I did just to go check it out. But that's the quickest way to get it, because if you take it if you ingest it, right? If you're not getting it, a guy like me, for whatever reason, I don't absorb it in my small intestine, right? So I need to take it that way. Some people, if you're a vegan and you don't have that problem, your small intestine might work just fine. So there's no way of knowing. So just taking a sublingual is the best way to go. The reason you would take our sublingual is because we hook it to a little tiny piece of calcium. We don't hook it to sugar.
And you're actually getting it as a tablet. That's very hard to find, especially in the methylated form, right? And so if B12 is something that you're struggling with, even if you don't take ours, right, find something that is a methylcobalamin in a sublingual tablet. That's what you're really looking for there.
And go on.
Go ahead.
Yeah, B12 also, it helps your body convert energy, right? So people think B12 is, oh yeah, I had B12 and I woke up right away. I felt good. It's not like caffeine at all, right? The reason you might feel better is it could be just because you think you feel better, right? Or it could be whenever you're low on B12 and you get enough B12, you do feel better, right? So that's how you know if you're low on B12. If you take it and then 30 minutes later, you feel alert, you feel awake. It's like, oh, I was low on B12. It really works that fast.
It's mind-boggling that we're not taught any of this stuff. I know you and I have talked about like the food conspiracy and whatever, and it's amusing to me that the same thing, and I don't know if it's an affect of capitalism or if it's just laziness, whatever it is, right? That the same thing translates into the vitamin or supplement world, where it's like, all right, you need to take a pre-workout. Why? Because it's going to make you bigger, stronger, faster in the gym. What's in a pre-workout? A whole bunch of shit and a shitload of caffeine, right?
Yeah.
You know what else has some caffeine in it and also some positive benefits? Coffee. You know where you can get some good coffee, Vinny?
Yeah, purecoffeeclub.com.
Oh, wow. Shameless plug. Look at that.
Yeah,
We just worked 2 into 1 episode.
Boom.
But that same thing applies across supplements. So if you're looking for something, again, even if you don't take our stuff, just check that it doesn't have crap in it. And it's disappointing that we have to run that check on literally everything that we do, right? It's like I can't just go buy a vitamin. I have to actually read the back of it to see if it has paint whitener or paint dryer in it.
Yeah.
Mind-boggling to me. If you want to skip that, you can just go to purevitaminclub.com and get it right there, and it's not a problem.
And Chris, I'm going to start doing more ads on my shows. All 3 shows, I'm going to do an ad within every show, because if people like Teresa and Mark, who are listeners, don't know, it makes me wonder how many other people don't know that they can get these superior products. And by the way, folks, these are the best vitamins on the planet, because we seek out the best ingredients to put in these vitamins, right? There is a difference. There's a big difference. And we could literally charge 3 or 4 times the amount of money to put these products in. But we keep it, like I've always explained, I'm building Toyotas and Hondas, right? They're superior. They don't break, right? They're superior to Mercedes and everything else that you pay a lot more for. You pay a lot less and you get more. And that's what we're trying to do here. So there you have it, Chris. Folks, go check out. Oh, go to X. I'm on X all the time. I always was. Now I'm putting a lot more content out on X. So go follow me there. And if you want a lot of free content thrown your way, you can ask me questions or do whatever. I answer twice a day to the questions, usually early in the morning, East Coast time, and late at night, East Coast time. So if you don't see your question answered right away, it's because I'm not there all day. But I go twice a day and answer every pertinent question. If you ask me something stupid like, what's it like sleeping with a Bond girl? I might answer that, but probably won't.
Just start posting Bond gifs in response. Like, I don't know, ask Sean Connery. Yeah.
That's probably not good.
I forgot he got in trouble.
If you have any problems, yes, he did. Well, Barbara. Do you know that interview?
Is that the one where they're talking about the abuse allegations?
Yeah. Barbara Walters asks him if it's okay to hit a woman. And he says, yeah. It's like, oh, geez. And then she tried to help him get out of it. And so he doubled down. Yeah.
I think we can both agree that it's not usually good to hit a woman, but there is also at some point a point, right? Like, it's weird to say there's never a reason to hit a lady, right? If she's coming at you with a knife, maybe it's okay. But also,
that's what we're talking about. No, you're not trying to hit her. You're trying to run or get out of the way of the knife. That's not the time to start a fight, Sean. But yeah, he was like, oh, like when you've asked him twice, it was like he just kind of doubled down. If we had more time, I'd go find that interview. It's so sad.
It's worth watching just from really? That's okay.
It was the weirdest thing ever. And to hear Barbara Walters try to get him out of it, and then he doubles down on it, is crazy. So, folks, you could probably find that online. In the meantime, I'm on X. Go check it out. Chris is on X. If you got any questions about your vitamins, your coffee, or your NSNG food products, Chris can help you. But you can also write to us at those companies or call us. We have a phone number. Rate and review this podcast. It means a lot if you do that. Before you go shopping on Amazon, go to VinnieTortorich.com. Click through the banner. It puts coal on the fire, and it gets my train down the track. We're able to keep the show free for a lot of years in a row. So on behalf of Chris Shaffer, my name is Vinnie Tortorich. Put life into living and do it with enthusiasm.